The world today continues to be one great mission field, even in countries that have a long history of Christian traditions. The late Holy Father, Pope John Paul II, once said, "It is not enough for us to discover Christ. We must also bring him to others."
They say we had both feet in hell and we didn't know it. Our Lady saved our lives and the lives of all of our children. They come to share their testimony this afternoon. The title of their talk is "The World as They Knew It Was Fading Away." And it goes along with the message that Mary has said to us, "God sends me to you out of love. Without God, there is no future or joy, and above all, there is no eternal salvation." Please welcome with me Nancy and Patrick Latta.
This sharing today is about my conversion to the messages of Medjugorje, but it's not an easy story to tell. It's very difficult, and I really need your help, because what I have to say is not easy for anyone. So if you'll bear with me, I'll start from the beginning. I'm 59 years old. I'm a Canadian. I've been married 3 times. I've been divorced twice. Both of my divorces were for adultery, and both of them were my fault. I haven't been to church in 25 years, up until the time of the messages. My oldest boy came to me and said, "Dad, tell me about God." I took a $20 bill out of my pocket and said, "Here, this is God. Go get a stack of these, you got all the God you want." I was in the car business for 30 years. My youngest son was going to St. Michael's School on Vancouver Island. And he phoned up one day and said, "Dad, there's a minister coming around to baptize some of us kids that have never been baptized. What should I do?" I said, "Do whatever you want. It's your choice." I didn't have enough guts to tell him there's one true faith. I didn't have enough guts to tell him to be a Catholic. I didn't have enough guts to tell him anything. He came home an Anglican, and I was born a Catholic. Isn't that great for a Catholic parent? I have 4 children, 2 from the first marriage and 2 from the second, and I shattered their lives completely. I met Nancy 16 years ago. Within 2 months, we were living together. We had no thought of doing anything proper or legal or even moral. We were just going to live together. And we did. We lived together for 7 years. At that point, Nancy said, "I think we should do something. I think we should get married. I think we should do something." And I said, "Great. I love it. That's fantastic. Let's do it." I didn't phone a priest or a church or a parish or even a minister. I phoned a helicopter service. I said, "I want to rent a helicopter. I want to fly to the top of Whistler Mountain in British Columbia. It's a big ski resort." I said, "Oh, by the way, I want a justice of the peace or marriage commissioner on board, because this has to be legal. Oh, and by the way, give me the name of the pilot. I'll make him the best man." "Yes, sir. We'll do that right away. No problem." We drive out to Whistler Mountain ski resort. The helicopter's there. We get in. We fly to the top of the mountain. And it's a beautiful day. The sun is shining, and the snow and the flowers and the fields. And we get out of the helicopter. The justice of the peace gets out with us. The pilot gets out. We get married on the mountain. The justice of the peace said, "Do you take so-and-so for your lawfully wedded wife?" I said, "I do." "Do you take so-and-so for your lawfully wedded husband?" "I do." "Sign here." We did. We never said a prayer. Not even one. We flew back to the bottom of the mountain. We had a big reception at the Whistler Inn Hotel and came home the next day. There you are, we're married. Legally we were. In the province of British Columbia, under the laws of Canada, we were. I'd come home from work. I came home from work maybe 6 weeks later, and Nancy's crying and crying and crying in the living room. I said, "What happened? What went wrong?" By the way, she's a lawyer. I thought something happened at the office. She said, "No, I don't feel married." I said, "What do you mean you don't feel married?" I said, "You know how much that helicopter cost?" "What do you mean you don't feel married?" She said, "No, I don't feel married. My mom didn't come and we didn't go to church." I said, "Oh, Nance, forget the church stuff. It's never going to happen." I said, "It couldn't happen. Besides that, I didn't even want it to happen." She said, "But my mom didn't come and we didn't go to church." I said, "Nance, there's absolutely no way I could ever get married back in the church. I was married in the church when I was 20 and divorced. I got remarried, but it was outside the church when I was 32 or something and divorced." I said, there's no way." She said, "Let me go see the bishop. Let me go see the bishop in Vancouver." So she goes down to see Bishop Carney in Vancouver, British Columbia. And she comes home that night with a signed annulment in her hand. I said, "Nance, that's impossible. That can't possibly be. I know you're a good lawyer, but no." She says, "No, your ex-wife applied for it 20 years ago. It came due last year. The church doesn't recognize your marriage, your second marriage. I have a letter from the bishop to get married back in the church." I said, "Oh, God, that's all I need." So I go like this. I said, "Go on, just go pick out a church. Go pick out a church," thinking that maybe this is never really going to happen. She comes home the next day. Now remember, Nancy is Croatian and a lawyer, so they're like little bulldogs, you know, they're tough. So she comes home the next day. She says, "I have a parish that'll marry us." I said, "Okay, what's the name of the church?" He says, "It's the Immaculate Heart of Mary." A Croatian Franciscan church. I don't know if anybody who've ever been to Canada, you can find one Croatian Franciscan church every 600 miles. She found the only one. But she said, "You got to go talk to Father Jerry. He's the parish priest." I said, okay. You know how a car dealer says okay? It's all lip service. So I go see Father Jerry and I said, "Father, Nancy phoned. She wants to get married in the church." He says, "I know." He said, "And I'm absolutely against it." He says, "You're a two-time loser." He says, "You got 2 ex-wives and 4 kids and she's never been married." He said, "I don't want any part of this." I said, "Oh, thank God." I'll go home. So I go home and say, "Nance, this is what Father Jerry said. He doesn't want us. He doesn't want any part of it." She says, "You go back and talk to him again." Okay. "Father, Nancy still wants to get married in the church." "Okay. If you really insist on it, but you have to go to confession. You have to come back to the sacraments. You have to come back to the faith." I said, "Oh my God, Father, I've been away from the church for 25 years. I'm a car dealer. It'll take 3 months to go to confession." You know how car dealers sell cars? Well, yeah, there's a little bit of truth, but not much. So he says, "No, you really have to. And if there's any children from the marriage, they have to be raised Catholic, and your track record is terrible." So I said, "Okay, Father, I promise. But everything was from the lips. Everything was from here. Everything was on the surface. So we get married in church. I think I'm the only guy that married his wife twice in the same year. And it's a beautiful wedding. And her mom comes, and she's dressed gorgeous, and her dad comes, and the whole family comes. But I still don't pray. Nothing touched me. I don't go to Mass on Sunday. I have a boat. I go out and play with my boat. I have my cars. I don't say the rosary. We'd be on holiday down in Mexico for Christmas, or Hawaii. And it's Christmas Eve. And Nancy get a movement in her heart. She said, I'd love to go to midnight Mass. I said, well, go. You know, I'm too busy in the bar drinking tequila or something. Didn't touch me at all. Absolutely wasn't moved by it at all. In the meantime, our kids. School phones me up. The kid that baptized himself, he said this kid can't come back to school anymore. I said, why? What happened? What did he do? He says he's drunk every day. And he's dealing drugs. This kid's 15 years old. I said, what do you mean he's dealing drugs? What do you mean he's dealing? I knew nothing about this. They said, listen, we're telling you we don't want him back in the school. Wow, what a shock that was to me. So he comes home. And you know when these kids are on drugs, they look like unmade beds, you know? He's got the earrings and the long hair and the baggy pants. And I don't know what to do with him. But he can't go to school. School won't take him. In the meantime, my other son, Jason, he's about 6'4", and he wants to play rugby. So he joins the Vancouver Rugby Club, comes home drunk every night. I said, I thought you joined the rugby club. What are you doing? What is it? Where's the booze? He said, well, it's, you know, we have a bar at the club, Dad, you know, and we, you know, the guys, we have to, you know, we have a few beer after. He's drunk every night. My daughter married one of my salesmen. Marriage lasted maybe 2 years. Thank God I got a grandson from it. But they split up. I didn't tell her to pray. I didn't tell her to go to church. I didn't tell her to make up with the guy. I gave her a credit card and a set of keys. I said, go find somebody else. And she did. And that ended in divorce. Well, she said, Dad, you can do it. I can do it. And what did I ever teach her? I was married and divorced and married and divorced, and she was married and divorced and married and divorced. She said, well, it's in the family, Dad. That's how we lived. My oldest boy, Paul, who looks a lot like Michael, who was singing here today, because he's also an entertainer. He lived 10 miles away and I never saw him. A whole year would go by, I never saw him. Wouldn't even step in, wouldn't even stop in. He'd never see me, I never saw him. I didn't know where he was. But my business was good. And as long as my business was good, nothing mattered to me. And I said, well, everybody's got problems. Everybody has problems with kids. Everybody has problems. Everybody has, you know, that's life. That's problems. I never prayed with my kids one day in their whole life. I never took them to church once, ever. So now we're into a material world. Nancy and I, we have a little real estate company. We're buying houses and selling houses, plus the car business. And we're moving from this one house to the bigger house. And a little package arrived. It was a little smaller than this, actually, but it was very similar. I said, Nance, what is this? What is this? She says, my brother sent it. Remember, they're Croatian. He said he translated us a message from some kids in a place they say they see the Mother of God. It's called Medjugorje. I said, see the Mother of God? What are you talking? I said, Nance, come on, this is the 90s. This is, come on. So I pitch it up on the fridge. It doesn't even get opened. But the day we're leaving this house to move to the bigger house, because you always bigger and bigger and bigger, that was our lifestyle. She hands this package back to me and says, here, my pagan husband. She says, you throw these away, it's on your conscience. And the car dealer has about that much conscience left, if that. So I said, give me these things. Let me see these things. What are they? And I opened it. And the first message I ever read, it said, I'm calling you to conversion for the last time. And underneath it said, I've come to tell you God exists. And I just stood there in tears. I don't know what happened. The tears wouldn't stop. And they just kept running and running and running. And that message, I'm calling you to conversion for the last time, went right through my heart. And it went right through my soul. I believed the messages of Medjugorje in 30 seconds. I didn't say who wrote them. I didn't say where did they come from. I didn't say what visionary. I didn't say who. I said the messages of Medjugorje are true. I believed them instantly. And I went to Nancy and I said, why didn't you tell me about these? Why didn't you tell me about these messages? I said, Nancy, these kids are telling the truth. This isn't Cinderella. This isn't a bedtime story. These kids are telling the truth. I believed them in 30 seconds. But the tears wouldn't stop. The tears kept coming and coming and coming. And the message that I've come to tell you God exists, when I was this big, 6 or 7 years old, when the sisters were teaching me in school, everything came back in an instant. Everything came back, and I said, oh my God, this is all true. God does exist. I spent my whole life pushing him away, and it came back like that. The messages just burned through my heart and soul. And I wouldn't put my book down. I read it and read it and read it and read it. I read every message in that little book 100 times. But the one that stuck in my soul is, I call you to conversion for the last time. And by the grace of God, I'll never know who did this, but somebody pinned a notice up in our house downstairs. And it said, Marian Conference, Eugene, Oregon, May 91. I didn't know what a Marian Conference was. There's a guy who hadn't been to church in 25 years. What do I know about a Marian Conference? But I knew it had something to do with my messages. I had now taken possession of these messages. These were now my messages. I said, Nance, we got to go to this thing. It's really important. It's got something to do with my messages. And she says, what about the house deal? What are you going to do with a car lot? I said, Nance, the boys can run the lot. The house deal can put on hold. Your secretary can run the office. We're going to this conference. She says, okay, we're going. So I had a little Volkswagen van, one of the little buses. So I take the kid, the unmade bed. I said, come on, you're going to this conference. Yeah. I said, I don't care, you're going to this thing. I said, I don't know what it's going to be, but you're going. Yeah. So I get in, and put him in the van. And her brother, who translated them for me originally, we take him, and the four of us drive down to Eugene, Oregon. We arrived there like on a Friday night. And there's a whole gang of people like there is here today. I mean, the place is full. It's a church and a schoolyard. So I park this little bus, and I get out. I still got my message book. I'm not letting that go. And I walk over to the first guy. I don't know who he is. And I said, listen, do you know anything about my messages here, about this message? I'm calling you to conversion for the last time. And he pats me on the head, He says, yeah, we've known about it for 10 years. I said, 10 years? He said, yeah, you're the new guy on the block. So I thought I was in heaven. Everybody's talking about my messages. Everybody's talking about these messages which I believed were true. I just believed them. There was nobody ever going to argue with me that the messages weren't true. But I didn't know the people that were there at this conference. Wayne Weibel was there. I didn't know who Wayne Weibel was. I didn't know he was one of the big heavy hitters for Our Lady. I had no idea. Roberta Salazar was there, the big full-time marathon runner who prays the rosary and wins marathons. Father Ken Roberts was there. Jan Connell was there. And Father McGinnity from Ireland. And these are the heavy, heavy, heavy hitters for Our Lady. And I said, Nance, I think we hit pay dirt. These guys are all talking about my messages. So that night, Father Ken Roberts said, come to the healing mass, 7:30. I think it was Saturday night the healing mass was. I said, Nance, there's a healing mass. It's special. We got to be there at 7:30. And I didn't know what the healing mass was. I thought they changed the name of the mass. So help me. I didn't know what it was. But I said, come on, we got to go to this thing. It's really important. So we go. Now the kid, the unmade bed, I can't find him. Lord, if you give me $100, I couldn't find this kid. He's out looking for a beer. Who knows where he was? But I found her brother, and so the three of us, we go and sit, and the mass starts. And everything looks normal. In the middle of the mass, Father Ken Roberts stops, and he takes the microphone. He says, I want everybody to do something very special here tonight. He says, I want you to consecrate your children to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Same tears. Same tears when I read the message. Same tears. They just wouldn't stop. I said, consecrate your children to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. I said, my God, what an idea. That's incredible. My kids are a mess. My kids are on drugs. My kids are on booze. My kids are married and divorced. My kids are a mess. I stand up in this mass, and I got my arms out this wide. And the tears won't stop. Nancy thinks I lost it. He says, my God, something's happened to my husband. And I said, Blessed Mother, I beg you, take my kids. I said, you be the parent I never was. I beg you. I said, I never baptized them. I never prayed with my kids. I never did one thing right with my kids in my whole life. I said, Blessed Mother, I beg you, take my kids. And the tears wouldn't stop. And that was the only honest thing I ever said in my whole life. It's the only thing I ever said that was true. It was the only thing I ever said that was from out of my heart and out of my soul. Blessed Mother, I beg you, take my kids. Because I didn't know where else to go. There was no help. There was nowhere to go with these kids. They were a mess beyond. Anything I did was useless because I never prayed with them once. I never gave them anything to hold on to when they fell. When my kid fell into drugs, what could I tell him? When my daughter got divorced, what was I going to say? Don't do it? I gave them nothing to hold on to. But that Mass with Father Ken Roberts was the turnaround in my life. That's when I changed. That's when I decided to live the messages. That's when I decided to try as hard as I could to follow what Our Lady is asking us. And it wasn't easy. Fasting, pray the rosary every day, go to confession once a month. I thought it was the hardest thing I ever could do in my whole life. I couldn't believe anything could be so tough. Somebody wrote a song, Gentle Mother. Phew. Gentle Mother. I couldn't get down 2 weeks of this fasting. And I'd wait till midnight and then raid the fridge. But that was my change. And miracles happened in our life. As I changed, I saw the kids change. I never asked them to pray. I never asked them to say the rosary. I never asked them to come to Mass. And people say, well, what are the fruits of Medjugorje? What are the fruits of one person believing the messages in a family? What do you get out of it? Ladies and gentlemen, this is what I've come to tell you today. The kid, in the unmade bed, who baptized himself on the 13th of this month, entered the seminary college in Rome. He joined the Order of the Oasis of Peace in Medjugorje. And his new name is Brother Jonathan of the Tenderness of Mary. And the rugby player, the kid that was playing rugby that I thought would be an alcoholic, he came to Medjugorje 2 years ago for Christmas. He made his first communion and confession with Father Philip. He went back to Canada. He's now a fireman. He lectures youth groups on the dangers of alcohol. And my daughter, my little blessed daughter, she wrote me this letter in Medjugorje. It said, "Dear Dad, the Lord makes all things new. Dear Dad, I want to be free to love you as the adult daughter I am. And I want you to be the father I know you can be. I never did get used to missing you, Dad. I love you, Michelle." And the oldest boy, who I wouldn't drive 10 miles to see, sent us a fax and says, "Dear Dad, I'm thinking of you a lot lately. Danita and I would like to come over to Medjugorje to see you. Would that be possible?" This kid I wouldn't drive 10 miles to see, and he's going to come 10,000 miles to see me. Our Lady got all four. I said, "Blessed Mother, take my kids, I beg you." She says, "I hear you. I hear you." And I had no right to say that. Here's a guy standing with both feet in hell who's committed every sin on this planet, who's done everything wrong. And I said, "Blessed Mother, I beg you, take my kids." And she did. But the greatest grace she gave me is standing beside me.